This is Inside the Right. Okay, Tim, we have a pretty massive humiliation for Marjorie Taylor Greene as she tried to flex her muscles and issue a motion to vacate against Mike Johnson as the speaker. Where did it all go wrong for her?
Boy, birth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been going wrong for a while for old Marge. She had no strategy. She had no real plan. She had no allies. She only got 11 Republican votes for this motion to vacate, which didn't include people that are like her putative allies, like Matt Gaetz. She didn't get Trump on board for this. And basically everything went wrong. To me, the thing that like Gates understood that Marjorie Taylor Greene missed was he timed this in such a way that like the Republicans were annoyed at McCarthy. The base was annoyed at McCarthy. It was early in the presidential race, and the Democrats loathed McCarthy for good reason because he was a fucking liar and because he rehabilitated Trump single-handedly almost
Yeah.
after January 6th. And so like McCarthy, while he felt like he had the majority of his conference, like there are all these other factors that were working against him. Gates pulls the trigger. I didn't even think Gates expected it to go as well as it did, to be honest. But like he timed it at a point where it was conceivable he could win. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene just didn't read the room.
Yeah.
I mean, she times is at the worst possible time. Republicans have finally reached their capacity for humiliation in the House. Like like her colleagues, they didn't want to do another humiliating round like they did with McCarthy. The Democrats, who don't really love Mike Johnson, weren't gonna like play ball with her, especially right on the heels of Mike Johnson cutting a deal with them on Ukraine and
Right.
and aid to Palestine as well. So like this just it was just a horrible read. The strategy was wrong. The timing was wrong. Everything was wrong. It was I mean, it was like she's just stepping on rakes all over the House floor.
And you have to add in the fact that the Democrats just got another member of Congress, and so the margin is down to like one single vote in the House, and so she's really playing with fire here by virtue of trying to issue a motion to vacate. When if so, all it would take was a single Republican to switch over, and then all of a sudden Hakeem Jeffries would be the speaker.
Yeah, and so this is interesting, and I think this is part of the reason why her colleagues are so mad at her, right? That they're just like, you're really playing with fire here. There was wish casting, fantasizing that Hakeem Jeffries could come out of the McCarthy melee as the speaker, but it was never a real possibility.
Right.
But it really was, this time. That is like maybe the only argument that the Democrats misplayed this, right? Like maybe do the Democrats say, oh, okay, we'll go along with this vacate motion to vacate and kind of see what happens. Maybe some Republican, strokes out or like gets caught at a NASCAR race and decides not to show up, wants to go down to Mar-a-Lago for dinner
Yeah.
instead of vote, and like next thing you know, Hakeem Jeffries is speaker. So I've seen some criticism from the left on that. I don't really think so. To me, though, this just shows once again, like the main frame for the Democrats for this whole year is going to be we are the governing party. We care about results. We care about actually implementing policies that are good for people. These other folks are crazy, insane. They want to end democracy. They only care about Donald Trump. They don't, right? And so, by being a good faith partner, it says, hey, if you cut a deal with us, we'll work with you. Like I do think that kind of burnishes the brand that the Democrats like have really earned as the only adults in DC.
Yeah. Uh, Tim, does this impact the perception of Marjorie Taylor Greene's strength in the conference, or does she still wield just as much influence as before?
I think it does. And it's a twofer, actually, knock against her on her strength within the conference. Because McCarthy understood that she had sway with the crazy caucus. And so McCarthy tried to keep her close. There's the famous picture of them doing the selfie on the
Right.
House floor. It's kind of a little bit of a sensual selfie, even. It seems like at least a little cozy for comfort. But so Kevin tried to keep her close to protect him. That didn't work. He got overthrown anyway. Then Johnson did not work as hard to keep her close. He did meet with her for a few hours, so that's probably was time not very well spent. But she tries to go after him and she fails. So it's really a big 0 for 2 for Marjorie Taylor Greene on her power within the conference. Now, I don't think you should misread this as to say, the normal Republicans are back, the Chamber of Commerce
Right.
Republicans are back. I think
Yeah.
this is more about her personality, and the fact that she is just a bad, she's just bad at politics, right?
Well,
She's just bad at like the strategy of this, and
well,
I think that a more competent, crazy person, would still wield a lot of power in the conference.
to that point, then, does an embarrassing moment for someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene actually matter for someone who doesn't exactly have a ton of shame? Like, is this really going to have any tangible impact? I mean, I don't know that it'll impact her. Well, I'll let you answer before I chime in.
Um, Yeah, well, and look, she's not going to lose her seat. She's in a safe red seat,
Of
right?
course.
And so I think that what it does is there's this aura of scariness that she had to like the closet normal Republicans, right? They're like, oh, we better not piss off Marjorie because she's just going to make a stink, and then right-wing media is going to be coming after me, and MAGA will come after me. It's just not worth it. And so like her power was related a little bit to the fear that she could wield that power through influence in MAGA world. And so in that way, I do think this has harmed her. Like, will she, live to fight another day and advance other crazy conspiracies, and might this all change, in the future? Sure, but for now, I do think it's impacted her political power.
Yeah, I think a lot of her power was derived from the perception of her power.
Yeah,
Obviously, she's just a singular congresswoman from a deep red district in northern Georgia. But again, it was like her proximity to power. It was the optics of power. It was the fact that she had stumbled into a bunch of wins before, and so it just gave like these optics that she had outsized influence. And then when push came to shove, and it was either just raw politics versus Marjorie Taylor Greene, she lost because even this Republican Party, even this House conference, recognized the abject stupidity that would come from vacating their own speaker with 6 months to go until the election, after they already have a dismal reputation for keeping speakers in the job. And I mean, it's going to be hard for them to go on the campaign trail after this and say, give us the House majority back, when really all that they've accomplished by virtue of their time in the majority would have been vacating two speakers and then spending 16 months on an investigation into Joe and Hunter Biden that went nowhere, and trying to push through a bill to protect gas stoves that were never actually at risk.
yeah. Well, oh, hey, come
I know,
on.
yeah.
Let's not understate the importance of appliance freedom,
Yeah.
Brian. Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, she only got 11. Again, she only got 11 on her
Yeah.
side. I mean, think about off the top of your head, you could come up with 12 Republicans who are lunatics. And so even among the lunatic caucus, she couldn't get full support. So yeah, and I think that tells you all you need to know.
I would just note right here for anybody watching, if you want to hear and see more from Tim, please subscribe to the Bulwarks YouTube channel. I'll put the links right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Very important to do that to build up this pro-democracy ecosystem that's going to stretch from left to right, and especially having Republicans, former Republicans, out there in the political media ecosystem that gives a permission structure for other Republicans, disaffected Republicans, soft Republican voters to hear a pro-democracy argument and be able to step away from the Republican Party as it is today. So again, links on this screen. It's also in the post description of this video. Tim, the flip side of the Marjorie Taylor Greene ouster attempt was there was a moment in which Democrats and Republicans largely came together and succeeded at a moment of bipartisanship. Do you think that this portends some inkling of further bipartisanship on the horizon, or was this solely because the prospect of ousting yet another Republican speaker was just that stupid, and so Republicans couldn't stomach it, and so we're happy to have bedfellows on the left for this moment?
Yeah, I think that it was a matter of time and just like chips falling into the right place at the right time. And Mike Johnson having a come to Jesus basically on Ukraine. And Mike Johnson didn't have to bring this up, right? And we had an alternate universe where Mike Johnson didn't bring up the Ukraine aid, didn't cut this deal.
Yeah.
And he chose to do it in part because I think he genuinely believed it was the right thing to do. I know that it's like in the Republican world these days, it's like, whoa, somebody did something because they thought it was the right thing to do. They were
Yeah.
a total nihilist. It's like it's almost too unusual to believe at this stage. But Mike Johnson, I do think that was what motivated him, and it turned out that there were enough votes to get it, and then the threat that might have come from cutting such a deal didn't materialize because what we've been talking about just it just would have been so cutting off your nose to spite your face, by Republicans to like go after him at this point. So no, I think that Mike Johnson survives. I think that emergency bipartisanship continues to be possible in this Congress. But I think that they'll end up with a short leash, and if they come back next year, a lot of caveats on that. Who's the president? Who's the lead? Which party has the House? But I don't think there's going to be a lot of incentive for Republicans to work with Democrats come 2025.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think this was just a moment in which even the Republicans were happy to align themselves with Democrats to avoid a disaster for them. This wasn't really helping the Democrats. This was really helping the Republicans using the Democrats' help to help themselves. And of course, Democrats are happy to not give more power to Marjorie Taylor Greene. And the added benefit of making her look like a clown is always welcome. With that said, Tim, do you think that seeing what this House Republican conference has accomplished or has not accomplished is going to have any impact in the election, or do you think that political polarization is just so intense that regardless of what we've seen in this historically unproductive Congress, it's not going to matter when voters go to the voting booth and they're just going to check D or R?
I think it's going to make a difference. I also think that is the prospect of this election is another motivating factor. I mean, you mentioned that, but just to put a finer point on it, there is in somewhere in the double digits. I don't know the top umpteen, let's just say, Republicans that are in Biden districts, right?
Yeah, I believe it's 19.
19, yeah. I was going from memory there. 19 Republicans in Biden districts. So, those guys, I think we're looking very vulnerable at the low watermark for Republicans, where they're throwing out their own speaker, the impeachment is a disaster, the immigration bill is going under, and so I think that they all are still in pretty vulnerable situations, but they're trying to stabilize themselves now, and trying to figure out how to survive in what is going to be, I think, a pretty tough environment for any Republican that's in a Biden district. So I think that was one of the factors that are at play here, and I do think that in these key districts, there are still enough swing voters that it's going to matter, and I think that the House of Representatives is going to turn one way or the other on members who are in purple states or purple districts, where there are some chunk of voters that are willing to cross the aisle if they think that one party puts up a candidate that's too extreme or too willing to go along with extremism. We saw this in 2022, and the reason why the Republicans have such a small majority is that in purple states and in red states, really, besides Florida, in purple states and in purple districts in red states, the Republican House members were seen as too extreme on abortion and too anti-democracy, and they lost a lot of races they should have won, and that's the reason why they have such a tiny majority now, and I think that the Democrats could build on that this time.
Well, I'm sure it'll only get better for Republicans who've now come out in support of monitoring women's pregnancies. So we'll see what happens on that front. Again, for those watching right now, if you want to support the work that Tim and his team at The Bulwark do, please make sure to subscribe. The link's right here on the screen. It's also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Tim Miller.
This is Inside the Right.